The greatest lie ever told is not found in a book of history. It is history itself. A lie meticulously crafted for 6,000 years to conceal a truth so profound it would not only rewrite our history, but shatter our very reality. A truth whispered in the world's oldest texts and hidden in the gravitational anomalies at the very edge of our solar system. This is the story of a ghost in our heavens, a phantom world known to the ancient Sumerians as Nibiru. The theory is as terrifying as it is elegant, that this planet is home to our creators, a race of ancient astronauts called the Anunnaki, who journeyed to Earth eons ago and genetically engineered Homo sapiens for a single purpose: to be a slave species, designed to toil in gold mines for their alien masters. But this is not just a story of the past. Nibiru is said to be locked in a vast 3,600-year elliptical orbit, a celestial doomsday clock. Its last passage is believed to have sparked a cataclysmic war that collapsed ancient civilizations. Its next return is imminent. Tonight we embark on an epic journey from the dusty clay tablets of Mesopotamia to the classified archives of modern astronomy. We will decode the global myths of a celestial destroyer, follow the official scientific hunt for the real Planet 9, and expose the chilling conspiracy that suggests world governments have known this truth for decades and are preparing in secret. The question is not just, are we alone, but are our creators coming back? And if they are, what will happen when they discover what has become of their creation? Before we dive deeper, ignite that like button and prepare for the revelations to come. Tell me in the comments where you are listening from, what time it is there. And as always with our videos, the visuals are here to add context, but they aren't necessary to follow along. Thank you for always having our back. Prepare yourself, and let's dive in. The story begins not in the distant past, but in the 20th century, with a man who claimed to have unlocked a secret hidden in plain sight for 6,000 years. His name was Zecharia Sitchin, and he proposed a narrative so audacious it threatened to rewrite not just human history, but the very nature of our existence. He argued that we are not alone, that we were never alone, and that our creators are destined to return. At the heart of his theory was a single terrifying concept. Our solar system has a secret member, a rogue world, a 12th planet he called Nibiru, home to a race of beings who genetically engineered humanity as a slave species. Sitchin was not an archaeologist or a linguist by trade. Born in the Soviet Union and educated in Palestine and London, his background was in economics and journalism. He was an outsider, unburdened by the dogmatic thinking of mainstream academia, capable of seeing what the experts had missed. He dedicated his life to retranslating the ancient cuneiform texts of Sumer, the world's first known civilization. And what he found, he claimed, was not myth, but history, a literal, factual account of extraterrestrial intervention. In his groundbreaking 1976 book, The 12th Planet, Sitchin laid out his entire thesis. According to his translations, the Sumerians knew our solar system contained not 9 but 12 members. They counted the Sun, the Moon, and the 10 planets we know today, including Pluto, but with one addition. This 12th member was Nibiru, a planet with a vast elliptical orbit that takes 3,600 Earth years to complete one journey around our Sun. For most of this period, it is lost in the darkness of deep space, far beyond Pluto. But every 3,600 years, its orbit brings it swinging back through the inner solar system, crossing the paths of the other planets. This planet, Sitchin argued, was inhabited by a technologically advanced, humanoid species the Sumerians called the Anunnaki, a word he translated as those who from heaven to earth came. These were not gods in a spiritual sense. They were physical beings, astronauts from another world. Around 450,000 years ago, the Anunnaki faced a crisis. Their homeworld, Nibiru, was dying. Its atmosphere was eroding, and the only solution was to suspend a shield of fine gold particles in their stratosphere to reflect heat and light. The problem was Nibiru didn't have enough gold, so they launched a space mission, an expedition to the one planet in the solar system they knew was rich with the precious metal, Earth, Upon arriving, the Anunnaki established bases in ancient Mesopotamia and began mining gold, but the labour was grueling, and the rank-and-file Anunnaki eventually mutinied. A new solution was needed. Under the leadership of their chief scientist, Enki, the Anunnaki decided to create a worker race. They took a primitive hominid, already evolving on Earth, what we would now call Homo erectus, and upgraded it. Using their advanced knowledge of genetic engineering, they infused the hominid's DNA with their own, creating a hybrid species, Homo sapiens. Us, we were made, Sitchin declared, to be slaves, designed to toil in the mines for our alien masters. The biblical story of Adam and Eve, in the Garden of Eden, he claimed, was not a metaphor for the fall of man, but a distorted memory of our genetic creation in a laboratory. This radical theory rested entirely on Sitchin's unique interpretation of ancient texts. Where scholars saw myths about warring gods and celestial allegories, Sitchin saw technical manuals and historical records. He pointed to Sumerian cylinder seals that appeared to depict the solar system with the sun at the centre, surrounded by all the planets, including an extra one between Mars and Jupiter. How could an ancient civilization know about Uranus and Neptune, planets invisible to the naked eye and not discovered by modern science until the 18th and 19th centuries? To Sitchin, the answer was simple. The Anunnaki told them. They passed down their advanced astronomical knowledge to the civilization they created. The academic world reacted with swift and almost universal condemnation. Sumerologists and linguists tore his translations apart, arguing that he manipulated definitions, took words out of context, and imposed a modern technological narrative onto ancient spiritual texts. They insisted that Anunnaki simply referred to the principal deities of the Sumerian pantheon, not space travellers. They pointed out that there is no ancient text that explicitly states humanity was created by aliens to mine gold. These were all conclusions Sitchin had stitched together from disparate and allegorical sources. Yet, despite the academic onslaught, Sitchin's ideas flourished. His book sold millions of copies and spawned a global movement of believers. Why? Because Sitchin's narrative provided answers to some of humanity's deepest questions. Where did we come from? Why are we here? Are we alone? He offered a story that was both scientific and mythic, replacing distant, unknowable gods with tangible flesh and blood creators who had a clear, if unsettling, motive. His theories also fed into a growing distrust of authority. He painted mainstream science as a closed-minded institution, either too arrogant to see the truth or actively complicit in hiding it. This conspiracy angle became a core part of the Nibiru legend. This leads to the more shadowy theories surrounding Sitchin himself. Some researchers have suggested that he was a high-ranking Freemason or was connected to other esoteric secret societies. They point to his focus on elite bloodlines, secret knowledge, and his use of symbols like the winged disc, a common image in both ancient Mesopotamia and modern occultism. Was he simply an independent researcher who stumbled upon a hidden truth? Or was he an insider, chosen to slowly release a carefully curated version of our history to the public? This conspiracy suggests that knowledge of the Anunnaki and Nibiru has been preserved for millennia within these secret orders, and Sitchin was part of a controlled disclosure. If true, it raises an even more disturbing question. What parts of the story did he leave out? What is the full truth they are still hiding from us? Zecharia Sitchin died in 2010, leaving behind a legacy of controversy and a world of unanswered questions. But he had lit a fire. He had forced us to look back at the oldest stories ever told and ask if they were more than just myths. To understand if he was a prophet or a fantasist, we must go to the source. We must dust off the clay tablets, decipher the cuneiform, and find out what the word Nibiru truly meant to the people who first wrote it down. To find the truth about Nibiru, we must look past the modern theories and go directly to the source, the ancient clay tablets of Mesopotamia. Zecharia Sitchin's entire narrative rests on his translation of these texts, So the central question is simple. What do they actually say? When we dust off the cuneiform script and consult the world's leading Assyriologists, the experts who have dedicated their lives to these dead languages, a very different picture emerges. The word Nibiru is real. It appears in multiple ancient documents, but its meaning is far more complex and far less literal than Sitchin ever let on. First, a crucial correction. Sitchin consistently referred to Nibiru as a Sumerian concept. This is inaccurate. The word Nibiru is not Sumerian. It is Akkadian, the language of the Babylonians and Assyrians who came after the Sumerians. It derives from the Semitic root number, which fundamentally means to cross. From this root we get words like ferry, ford or bridge. So at its core, Nibiru means a crossing point, or place of transition. This linguistic fact is the first crack in the 12th planet theory. The name itself doesn't describe a homeworld, it describes a location or an event in the sky, a point where paths intersect. The most famous mention of Nibiru comes from the Babylonian creation epic, the Enuma Elish. This is the story of how the god Marduk rose to power by defeating the primordial chaos dragon Tiamat. After his victory, Marduk arranges the cosmos, setting the stars and planets in their proper stations. It is here that he establishes Nibiru. The text says, "He set up the station of Nibiru to determine their celestial bands, so that none could transgress or fall short." In this context, Nibiru is not a rogue planet invading the solar system. It is the opposite. It is a celestial anchor point, a cosmic shepherd, a fixed star, or position that holds the rest of the heavens in place. Its function is to ensure regularity and order, preventing the other celestial bodies from straying from their paths. Marduk makes Nibiru the overseer of the heavens, the very symbol of stability. This is a direct contradiction to the idea of a chaotic intruder that returns to wreak havoc. But where was this crossing point? For that, we turn from mythology to astronomy. The Babylonians were meticulous observers of the night sky, and they documented their findings in astronomical compendiums. The most important of these is a text known as Meul.Apin, a comprehensive star catalogue compiled around 1000 BC. This document lists constellations, planets, and describes their movements. It refers to Nibiru as the star that marks the transition from the old year to the new, a celestial body visible near the vernal equinox. It is described as the star that stands in the west at the end of the year and is seen in the east at the beginning of the year. This doesn't describe a planet with a 3,600-year orbit that disappears for millennia. It describes the predictable, annual behaviour of a known celestial object as seen from Earth. This is where the mainstream academic consensus comes in. For the vast majority of scholars, Nibiru is simply one of the Babylonian names for the planet Jupiter. This identification makes perfect sense. In Babylonian mythology, the planet Jupiter was unequivocally associated with their chief deity, Marduk. Since the Enuma Elish calls Nibiru the star of Marduk, the connection is direct. Jupiter is the largest and most dominant planet in our solar system, a fitting celestial counterpart for the king of the gods. Its steady, bright presence in the sky would make it an ideal candidate for the role of the celestial shepherd, the regulator of the other planets' paths. The Babylonians often gave planets different names depending on their position in the sky or the time of year. It's highly probable that when Jupiter reached the celestial equator, the crossing point between the northern and southern halves of the sky, it was referred to as Nibiru. However, to present this as a closed case would be dishonest. The ancient texts contain ambiguities that keep the mystery alive. One astronomical tablet, known as Astrolabe B, contains a cryptic line: "The red star which stands in the south after the gods of the night have finished their task, dividing the sky in half." This star is Nibiru. This is a fascinating anomaly. Jupiter is not typically described as a red star. That description is almost always reserved for Mars or the star Antares. Could Nibiru have been a name sometimes applied to Mars? Or can Jupiter appear reddish under certain atmospheric conditions? This single line complicates the simple Jupiter is Nibiru theory. Furthermore, as some proponents of Sitchin's work point out, there are a few tablets where Nibiru and the planet Jupiter, called Mul Baba in Sumerian, are seemingly listed as separate entities. How can we explain these discrepancies? It's possible that the term Nibiru evolved over time. In very early text, it might have referred to a specific star or even a conceptual point in the sky. As the cult of Marduk grew in prominence, making him the supreme god of Babylon, his personal planet Jupiter may have absorbed the title of Nibiru as a mark of its supreme status. This would explain why in later Babylonian texts, the identification is much more explicit. The inconsistencies don't necessarily point to a secret 12th planet. They point to a complex, evolving system of astronomy and religion over thousands of years, something Sitchin's static, literal interpretation completely ignores. So when we look at the raw evidence, we don't find a story of alien astronauts or a rogue homeworld. We find a rich and nuanced celestial term deeply embedded in the Babylonian worldview. Nibiru was a crossing point, a symbol of divine order, a celestial regulator, and most likely a special designation for the planet Jupiter, in its role as the earthly avatar of the great god Marduk. The real mind-bending scientific fact here is not about a hidden planet, but about the incredible sophistication of Babylonian astronomy. They created a system that blended myth, religion, and precise mathematical observation to map the heavens and find order in the cosmos. The myth of Nibiru is not a memory of a physical planet, but a testament to their intellectual quest to understand their place in the universe. But to understand why they needed a celestial regulator like Marduk and his star Nibiru, we must first understand the story of the cosmic chaos they believed preceded it. A story of a primordial war in the heavens that Sitchin believed was a literal account of planetary collision. Before there was order, there was chaos. Before the planets followed their prescribed paths, there was a cosmic war of unimaginable violence. This is the story at the heart of the Babylonian creation epic, the Enuma Elish. For mainstream scholars, it is a powerful political allegory, a myth designed to justify the rise of Babylon and its patron god, Marduk, to supremacy over the older Sumerian city-states and their deities. But for Zecharia Sitchin, this was no allegory. It was the distorted, mythologized memory of a real celestial cataclysm that shaped our solar system and gave birth to our own planet. To understand the Nibiru theory, we must delve into this ancient story and Sitchin's extraordinary reinterpretation of it. The Enuma Elish begins in the primordial void, where only two entities exist: Apsu, the personification of fresh water, and Tiamat, the personification of the saltwater oceans, a monstrous swirling dragon of chaos. From their union, the first generation of gods are born. As these new deities grow in number and power, their noise and activity disturb the ancient Apsu, who plots to destroy them. But the young gods discover his plan, and the clever god Ea, Sitchin's Enki, kills Apsu in his sleep. This act enrages Tiamat. Once a passive creative force, she transforms into a terrifying beast of vengeance. She creates an army of 11 monstrous creatures, venomous serpents, scorpion men, and raging demons, and places her new consort, Kingu, at their head. The younger gods are powerless, paralyzed with fear before her wrath. This is where the hero emerges: Marduk, son of Ea. He is young, powerful, and ambitious. He steps forward and offers to face Tiamat, but he demands a price. If he is victorious, he must be crowned king of all the gods, his authority made absolute and eternal. The desperate gods agree. Marduk arms himself not with simple weapons, but with the forces of nature itself. He wields the four winds, commands the lightning, and fashions a great net to ensnare the chaos dragon. He rides a storm chariot into battle and confronts Tiamat. The battle is cataclysmic. Tiamat opens her mouth to devour Marduk, but he unleashes the evil wind, which inflates her body like a balloon, rendering her helpless. He then fires an arrow that pierces her heart, killing her. the war is not over. He captures her monstrous army and takes the Tablet of Destinies from Kingu, cementing his own authority. Then he returns to Tiamat's colossal corpse and performs an act of cosmic creation. He slices her body in two like a shellfish. From one half, he raises the sky, creating the heavens. From the other half, he lays down the earth. He sets the stars in their stations, creates the calendar, and establishes the order of the cosmos. He has not just won a war, he has forged reality itself out of the body of his defeated enemy. Now let's look at this story through Sitchin's eyes. He saw this not as myth, but as science. He argued that the gods were not deities, but planets, and the Enuma Elish was a sophisticated cosmogony detailing the formation of our solar system. In his model, Tiamat was not a dragon, but a massive ancient planet that once existed in an orbit between Mars and Jupiter. Apsu represented the sun. The other gods were the other planets in their primordial orbits. The invader, the interloper, was Nibiru, which he identified with Marduk. According to Sitchin, Nibiru was a rogue planet from outer space, captured by our sun's gravity and pulled into the solar system on a retrograde, clockwise orbit, contrary to the counterclockwise path of all the other planets. As it passed by the outer planets, its trajectory was bent inward. This path brought it into a direct collision course with the ancient planet Tiamat. The battle described in the myth was a literal account of a celestial impact. Sitchin's analysis was incredibly detailed. Nibiru didn't strike Tiamat directly at first. On its first pass, one of Nibiru's 7 moons, which Marduk armed as his winds, smashed into Tiamat, cracking her open. This corresponds to the part of the myth where Marduk uses the winds to inflate Tiamat. On its next 3,600-year orbit, Nibiru itself returned and struck the wounded Tiamat directly, shattering her into 2 pieces. This is Marduk slicing her corpse in half. What happened to the pieces? Sitchin claimed the upper half of Tiamat, along with her primary moon, Kingu, was knocked into a new orbit closer to the sun, between Venus and Mars. This wounded half-planet coalesced, and water from the original planet filled the massive gash left by the impact. This half-planet became Earth, and its moon, Kingu, became our moon. The massive scar from the collision became the Pacific Ocean basin. The other half of Tiamat was utterly pulverized by the impact. The countless shattered fragments were thrown into Tiamat's original orbit, becoming what we now know as the asteroid belt. This, Sitchin argued, is the hammered bracelet that Marduk placed in the sky as a celestial boundary. Even the comets, with their strange long-period orbits, are explained as far-flung debris from this cosmic collision. This is without a doubt a mind-bending and elegant theory. It provides a single, dramatic explanation for a host of solar system mysteries: the existence of the asteroid belt, the peculiar geology of Earth, with its continents seemingly clustered on one side, the origin of our unusually large moon, and the strange orbits of comets. It transforms an ancient myth into a plausible, if unproven, scientific hypothesis. However, the scientific community has major problems with this planetary collision theory, often called the giant impact hypothesis. While a giant impact is the leading theory for the formation of our moon, a Mars-sized object named Theia is thought to have hit the early Earth. Sitchin's version is seen as impossible. The sheer energy required to split a planet in half and propel one piece into a stable, near-circular inner orbit would more likely have obliterated both bodies completely, turning them into a new, larger asteroid belt. There would be no Earth left. Furthermore, the chemical composition of the asteroid belt does not suggest it came from a single, massive, water-bearing parent body like the hypothetical Tiamat. It appears to be composed of primordial material that simply never managed to form a planet, likely due to the immense gravitational interference of Jupiter. The conspiracies surrounding this part of the story are compelling. Some believe that NASA and the wider astronomical community are aware of this primordial history, but are actively suppressing it. Why? Because confirming the existence of a rogue planet like Nibiru, one capable of such destruction, would cause global panic. Evidence of a past collision is evidence of a future one. Any official acknowledgement that a massive celestial body is on a long-period orbit that intersects our own would be the most destabilising piece of information in human history. So, the story goes, they promote the primordial rubble theory for the asteroid belt and dismiss Sitchin's ideas as pseudoscience to maintain public order. The Enuma Elish is kept safely in the realm of myth, its terrifying scientific implications locked away. But if Sitchin was right about this cosmic history, it means our planet was literally born from violence, and the weapon that created us is still out there, on a 3,600-year-long clock, ticking its way back toward us. If a technologically advanced alien race created humanity, they must have had a reason. And if their homeworld returns to our cosmic neighbourhood on a predictable schedule, there must be a timeline. Zecharia Sitchin didn't just offer a creation story. He provided a detailed 450,000-year history of our interaction with the Anunnaki and a precise timetable for their return. At the centre of this timeline is a single crucial number, 3,600. This number, he claimed, was the key to unlocking the cycles of our past and the destiny of our future. It is the duration, in Earth years, of a single orbit of the planet Nibiru. Sitchin found this number hidden in the Sumerian sexagesimal, base 60 mathematical system. The Sumerians had a term, the Shah, which represented the number 3,600. For mainstream scholars, this was simply a mathematical unit, a convenient large number in their counting system, like our 1,000 or million. But Sitchin saw something more. He believed the Shah was not just a number, but a unit of celestial time, a direct measurement of one Nibiruan year. This was his Rosetta Stone. By applying the 3,600-year cycle to ancient records, he believed he could reconstruct the entire history of Anunnaki intervention on Earth. He started with the Sumerian king list, an ancient document that lists the rulers of Sumer and the lengths of their reigns. The list is famous for its impossibly long reigning kings from before a great flood. Rulers are said to have reigned for 28,800 years, 36,000 years, even 43,200 years. Historians dismiss these as mythical figures, or exaggerations meant to convey divine right. Sitchin, however, saw a code. When he divided these reign lengths by 3,600, he found they resolved into smaller, more believable numbers. A king who reigned for 36,000 years, for instance, had actually reigned for 10 Shahs, 10 Nibiruan years. He argued the list wasn't tracking the reigns of human kings in Earth years, but the tenures of Anunnaki governors in Nibiruan years. The Great Flood mentioned in the list marked the point where governorship was transferred from Anunnaki rulers to human Anunnaki hybrids whose lifespans, and therefore reigns, became much shorter. Using the 3,600-year cycle, Sitchin constructed his timeline. Around 450,000 years ago, 125 Shahs before present, the Anunnaki, led by their ruler Anu, arrived on Earth seeking gold to repair Nibiru's atmosphere. Their first leader on Earth was Enki, a brilliant scientist who established their first base, Eridu, in southern Mesopotamia. Subsequent waves of Anunnaki arrived, and cities were built. But the rank-and-file workers, the Igigi, grew tired of the hard labour in the gold mines of Africa. Around 300,000 years ago, the Igigi mutinied. This crisis led to the creation of humanity. Enki, using genetic manipulation and in vitro fertilization, combined the DNA of the Anunnaki with that of a native hominid, Homo erectus. The result was the Lulu, the mixed one, the first Homo sapiens, a primitive worker created to be a biological machine, a slave for the gods. The biblical story of Adam and Eve is, in Sitchin's view, a condensed and distorted account of this genetic engineering event. For millennia, humanity served its masters. But a division grew within the Anunnaki leadership. Enki, the creator, felt a paternal affection for his creations. His half-brother, Enlil, the commander of the mission, saw humans as nothing more than tools and grew frustrated by their noise and imperfections. This family drama, Sitchin argued, is the real story behind the warring gods of ancient mythologies. The next major event occurred around 13,000 BC. The Anunnaki, from their orbital stations and their observations on Earth, knew that the next passage of Nibiru through the inner solar system would cause a massive gravitational disruption. Specifically, it would cause the vast Antarctic ice sheet to slip into the ocean, triggering a global flood of epic proportions. The Great Flood recorded in myths around the world. Enlil saw this as an opportunity to wipe the slate clean, to let the flawed human experiment be washed away. He forced the other Anunnaki to swear an oath of secrecy, to let humanity perish. But Enki defied him. He secretly went to his human favourite, a man known in Sumerian texts as Zeusudra, and in the Bible as Noah, and instructed him to build a submersible vessel, an ark, to save himself, his family, and the genetic material of Earth's living creatures. When the flood came, humanity was all but wiped out. But thanks to Enki, a remnant survived. After the waters receded, a chagrined Enlil was forced to accept that humanity was here to stay. The Anunnaki decided to elevate humanity from mere slaves to a partner civilization. They gave us agriculture, animal husbandry, and the foundations of society, establishing the great Sumerian civilization in Mesopotamia around 3,800 BC. Each subsequent passage of Nibiru, every 3,600 years, marked a major turning point in human history, often associated with cataclysms and new eras of divine instruction. The rise of Sumer, the building of the pyramids, the establishment of great empires, all were guided by the Anunnaki according to this celestial clock. The most recent passage, according to Sitchin's timeline, occurred around 1600 BC. This event, however, was not peaceful. A nuclear conflict allegedly broke out between warring Anunnaki factions on Earth, leading to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, which he claimed were Anunnaki spaceports, and the sudden collapse of the Sumerian civilization. Following this disaster, the Anunnaki largely withdrew from direct, overt interaction with humanity, choosing instead to guide us from the shadows through secret societies and chosen bloodlines. This leads to the ultimate question: when is the next return? By Sitchin's own fragmented and sometimes contradictory calculations, the next passage of Nibiru is imminent. Some researchers analysing his work place the return somewhere between 2060 and 2090, while others, aligning his timeline with other prophecies, predicted dates like 2012. The failure of these predictions to materialise has been a major point of criticism against the theory. This is where the conspiracy theories deepen. One theory suggests Sitchin was deliberately fed disinformation. Perhaps the 3,600-year cycle is real, but he was given the wrong starting point, ensuring that any predictions he or his followers made would fail, thereby discrediting the entire subject. Another more unsettling idea is that the Anunnaki do not all share the same agenda. The faction led by Enki, the creator, may be benevolent or at least protective of humanity. The faction of Enlil, the disciplinarian, may be hostile, viewing us as a failed experiment that needs to be purged. The return of Nibiru might not just be a celestial event, but the climax of a 450,000-year-old political conflict, with Earth as the battlefield and humanity as the prize. Will they return as saviours or destroyers? According to the timeline, we are living in the final years before that question is answered. Long before Zecharia Sitchin wrote of a Nibiruan homeworld, astronomers were already haunted by a ghost. Not a literal phantom, but a ghost of gravity, an unseen, unfelt presence tugging at the edges of our solar system, a mathematical spectre that refused to be exorcised. For over 170 years, scientists have been hunting for a hidden planet, a massive object lurking in the darkness beyond Neptune. They called it Planet X, the X standing not for the Roman numeral 10, but for the unknown. The story of this hunt is a scientific detective story, one that reveals that the idea of a missing planet is not fringe speculation, but a serious astronomical inquiry driven by undeniable evidence. Something is out there, The trail begins with the planet Uranus. Discovered in 1781, astronomers meticulously charted its orbit, but it refused to behave. It consistently strayed from its predicted path, sometimes moving too fast, sometimes too slow. It was as if something was pulling on it, an invisible hand altering its journey through the heavens. The French mathematician Urbain Le Verrier became obsessed with this problem. He proposed a radical idea. The deviations were caused by the gravitational pull of another undiscovered planet orbiting the Sun, even farther out than Uranus. In 1846, using nothing but pen, paper, and the laws of physics, he calculated the exact position of this phantom planet. He sent his calculations to the Berlin Observatory, and on the very first night of their search, astronomers pointed their telescope to the specified spot and found it. The planet was Neptune. It was one of the most stunning triumphs in the history of science. A planet discovered by pure mathematics. Case closed. Except it wasn't. Even after accounting for Neptune's gravity, there were still tiny, lingering anomalies in the orbits of both Uranus and Neptune. They were small, but they were persistent. The ghost had not been fully captured. This led the wealthy Bostonian astronomer Percival Lowell to launch a new search. He founded the Lowell Observatory in Arizona and dedicated the final years of his life to hunting for what he famously christened Planet X. Lowell calculated where he believed Planet X should be and searched fruitlessly until his death in 1916. But his legacy lived on. In 1930, a young astronomer at the Lowell Observatory named Clyde Tombaugh, using Lowell's calculations, finally found a tiny, moving speck of light in the constellation Gemini. It was Pluto. Planet X had been found, or so everyone thought. Celebrations were short-lived. As astronomers studied Pluto, a sinking realization set in. It was far too small. Initial estimates thought it might be as large as Earth, but we now know it's smaller than our own moon. A celestial snowball like Pluto simply doesn't have enough mass to exert any meaningful gravitational pull on the gas giants Uranus and Neptune. It couldn't be the source of the anomalies. The discovery of Pluto was an incredible coincidence, a happy accident. The real Planet X, the massive world that was warping the outer solar system, was still out there, hiding in the dark. For decades, the search stalled. Then in 1992 came a groundbreaking discovery that redefined the very map of our solar system. Astronomers David Dewitt and Jane Liu found the first object beyond Pluto, confirming the existence of a long-theorized region of icy bodies now known as the Kuiper Belt. This was a game-changer. Our solar system didn't end with Pluto. It had a vast, unexplored frontier teeming with thousands of frozen worlds. And it was in the strange behaviour of these Kuiper Belt objects, KBOS, that the ghost of Planet X would reappear, stronger than ever. As astronomers mapped more and more KBOS, they noticed something deeply weird. A handful of them, the most distant ones, all shared strangely similar orbits. They were all tilted at the same angle, relative to the rest of the solar system, and their perihelions, the closest points in their orbits to the Sun, were all clustered together in one quadrant of the sky. This shouldn't be happening. In a randomly distributed system, their orbits should point in all directions, like the hands on a broken clock. Instead, they were all pointing in roughly the same direction. The odds of this happening by chance are minuscule, less than 0.007%. It was like walking into a forest and finding 10 different trees, all inexplicably bent in the exact same direction. The only logical conclusion is that some powerful, unseen force is shepherding them, corralling them into these aligned orbits. This discovery gave birth to the modern Planet X hypothesis, now often called Planet 9. The force doing the corralling, scientists calculated, must be a massive planet, something perhaps 10 times the mass of Earth, on a huge, elongated orbit that takes it hundreds of times farther from the Sun than Earth is. This undiscovered giant would be lurking in the far reaches of the Kuiper Belt, its immense gravity shaping the orbits of everything around it. Then there is the mystery of the Kuiper Cliff. The Kuiper Belt is a dense disk of objects stretching out to about 50 astronomical units, AU, from the Sun. 1 AU is the distance from the Earth to the Sun. But at 50 astronomical units, it just stops. The density of objects drops off dramatically, creating a cosmic cliff. Why? One leading theory is that a massive planet, a planet X, has gravitationally cleared out that region, either by flinging objects into deep space or capturing them as moons. It acts like a cosmic snowplow, creating an edge where there shouldn't be one. The conspiracy theories surrounding this long search are as compelling as the science. The most persistent is that Planet X, or Nibiru, was actually found decades ago. Proponents of this theory point to the 1983 IRAS, Infrared Astronomical Satellite Mission, an article published in the Washington Post on December 30th, 1983, with the headline, "Possibly as large as Jupiter, mystery heavenly body discovered," stated that the satellite had found a mysterious object in the direction of the constellation Orion. The chief scientist of the IRAS mission was quoted as saying, "All I can tell you is that we don't know what it is." The following day, the story was officially retracted, with officials claiming the object was just a distant galaxy or interstellar gas. For conspiracy researchers, this was not a correction. It was a cover-up. They believe IRAS found Nibiru, and the government immediately classified the discovery, realising the panic it would cause. The search for Planet 9 today, they argue, is just a public-facing charade, a slow-drip disclosure to prepare humanity for a truth they've known about for almost 40 years. An article published in the Washington Post on December 30th, 1983, with the headline, "Possibly as large as Jupiter, mystery heavenly body discovered," stated that the satellite had found a mysterious object in the direction of the constellation Orion. The chief scientist of the IRAS mission was quoted as saying, "All I can tell you is that we don't know what it is." The following day, the story was officially retracted, with officials claiming the object was just a distant galaxy or interstellar gas. For conspiracy researchers, this was not a correction. It was a cover-up. They believe IRAS found Nibiru, and the government immediately classified the discovery, realising the panic it would cause. The search for Planet 9 today, they argue, is just a public-facing charade, a slow-drip disclosure to prepare humanity for a truth they've known about for almost 40 years. Whether through mainstream science or forbidden knowledge, the conclusion is the same. The solar system we see is not the complete picture. A ghost in the machine is pulling the strings from the outer darkness. The hunt for a hidden planet has transitioned from the realm of fringe theory, an historical anomaly, into one of the most exciting frontiers of modern astronomy. The ghost in the machine is no longer just a whisper. It has a name, a predicted size, and a calculated orbit. In 2016, astronomers Konstantin Batygin and Mike Brown from Caltech published a landmark paper that presented the most compelling mathematical evidence to date for a ninth major planet in our solar system. They didn't find it with a telescope. They found it in the numbers, in the collective gravitational scream of a half-dozen distant frozen worlds. Batygin and Brown were initially skeptics. Their goal was to debunk the growing claims that a hidden planet was influencing the outer solar system. They set out to prove that the strange alignment of distant Kuiper Belt objects, or KBOs, was just a statistical illusion, a trick of observational bias. But the more they ran the simulations, the more the data refused to cooperate. They found that the bizarre orbits of these objects, including the dwarf planet Sedna, were not only real but were best explained by a single, massive perturber. Their attempt to kill the Planet X theory ended up providing the strongest evidence for its existence. What they proposed was a world unlike any other in our solar system. They named it simply Planet 9. According to their models, Planet 9 is a behemoth, with a mass between 5 and 10 times that of Earth, making it a super-Earth or a mini-Neptune. It doesn't orbit on the same flat plane as the other 8 planets. Its orbit is highly inclined, tilted by about 30 degrees, and extremely elliptical, or eccentric. At its closest point to the Sun, perihelion. it would be about 200 times farther from the Sun than Earth is, well beyond the Kuiper Belt. But at its farthest point, aphelion, it could swing out to a staggering 1,200 astronomical units into the dark abyss of the Oort cloud. This enormous looping orbit is the key. A single revolution around the Sun would take an immense amount of time, estimated to be somewhere between 10,000 and 20,000 Earth years. This explains why we've never seen it. For most of its journey, it is impossibly far away, an incredibly faint and slow-moving target against the backdrop of distant stars. This timescale is a significant point of divergence from Sitchin's theory. His Nibiru has a 3,600-year orbit, a number that doesn't align with the 10,000 to 20,000-year orbit calculated for Planet 9. For critics, this is proof that Sitchin was wrong. For believers, it opens up a more complex possibility. Are Planet 9 and Nibiru two different objects? Or has Nibiru's orbit changed over time? The mathematical evidence Batygin and Brown presented is multifaceted and deeply compelling. First, there is the clustering of the 6 most distant KBOS. Planet 9's gravity naturally shepherds these smaller bodies into the aligned orbits we observe. It's the most elegant explanation for why they all point in the same direction. Second, their model actually predicted the existence of another class of objects, KBOS, with orbits perpendicular to the plane of the solar system, tilted by 90 degrees. At the time of their paper, this was just a theoretical prediction, but since then astronomers have actually found several of these objects, their orbits tilted in exactly the way the Planet 9 model predicted. It's like a physicist predicting the existence and properties of a new subatomic particle before the particle accelerator is even turned on. It's a powerful validation of the theory. Third, there is the mystery of the Sun's tilt. The Sun is inexplicably tilted by about 6 degrees relative to the orbital plane of the planets. It's like a spinning top that is slightly off kilter. No one has ever been able to satisfactorily explain why. The Planet 9 model provides a beautiful solution. The immense inclined orbit of Planet 9, exerting a steady gravitational torque on the entire solar system over billions of years, could have gradually pulled the orbital plane of the other planets away from the Sun's equator, creating the 6-degree tilt we see today. Planet 9 is, in essence, single-handedly tilting our entire solar system. So if the evidence is so strong, why haven't we found it? The challenge is immense. Because it is so far from the Sun, Planet 9 reflects an infinitesimal amount of light. And being so far out, it moves incredibly slowly across the sky. Finding it is like trying to spot a single slow-moving grain of black sand on a vast, dark beach at night from miles away. Current sky surveys like the Panoramic Survey Telescope and Rapid Response System, PAN-STARRS, have scanned large portions of the sky where it might be, but have so far come up empty. However, hope is on the horizon. The Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile, set to become fully operational in the near future, will conduct an unprecedented survey of the southern sky. Its massive telescope will be able to detect objects far fainter and more distant than anything before it. Many astronomers believe that if Planet 9 exists, the Rubin Observatory will find it within the first few years of its operation. The conspiracies surrounding the official search for Planet 9 are rife with suspicion. One theory posits that the Batygin and Brown announcement was a form of soft disclosure. The government and military, having known about Nibiru/Planet 9 for decades from secret projects and missions like IRAS, realised that the object's approach would soon make it discoverable by civilian astronomers. To control the narrative and prevent panic, they sanctioned a rediscovery of the planet through official academic channels. This allows them to frame it as a benign, distant object of scientific curiosity, rather than a cyclical harbinger of doom. They get to control the name, the orbital data, and the public perception, stripping it of its mythical, apocalyptic baggage. The 10,000 to 20,000 year orbit might be part of this managed narrative, a deliberately inflated number to make its return seem like a distant, irrelevant problem, when in fact, it's true, 3,600-year orbit means it is much closer than we are being told. The scientific search for Planet 9 may not be a quest for discovery, but a carefully stage-managed piece of theatre, preparing us for a truth they can no longer keep hidden. The search for Planet 9 has forced astronomers to confront a humbling reality. The dark, outer reaches of our solar system are a realm of profound mystery. While a Neptune-sized planet remains the leading candidate for the gravitational anomalies we observe, the hunt has opened the door to possibilities that are far stranger and potentially far more terrifying. What if the ghost in the machine isn't a planet at all? What if it's something fundamentally different? Something our current models of the cosmos have not fully accounted for? The evidence that is pushing scientists toward Planet 9 could, in fact, be pointing to something much more exotic hiding in the cosmic shadows. One of the most compelling alternative theories is the idea of a dark star, a failed companion to our own sun. Our star, the Sun, is a cosmic exception. Most Sun-like stars in the galaxy are not solitary. They exist in binary or multi-star systems, gravitationally bound to one or more stellar companions. Is it possible that our Sun is not alone after all? This hypothetical companion is often called Nemesis. It wouldn't be a bright star like the Sun. Instead, it would likely be a brown dwarf, a fifth failed star. Brown dwarfs are objects more massive than a planet like Jupiter, but not massive enough to ignite the nuclear fusion in their cores that would make them shine like a true star. They are incredibly dim, emitting most of their energy as faint infrared radiation, making them nearly impossible to detect with conventional telescopes. A brown dwarf nemesis orbiting the Sun at a vast distance of perhaps a light year or more would have a highly elliptical orbit. For tens of thousands of years, it would be a harmless, invisible neighbour, but periodically, its orbit would bring it plunging through the Oort cloud, the immense spherical shell of trillions of icy comets surrounding our solar system. Like a shark swimming through a school of fish, its immense gravity would disrupt the stable orbits of these comets, sending a deadly shower of them hurtling toward the inner solar system. This nemesis theory was originally proposed in the 1980s to explain a perceived 26 million year cycle of mass extinctions on Earth, including the one that wiped out the dinosaurs. The gravitational disturbances caused by Planet 9 are too weak to explain such a cycle, but a brown dwarf would be more than powerful enough. Another possibility is that Planet 9 is not a planet, but a primordial black hole, PBH. This is perhaps the most mind-bending theory of all. Primordial black holes are not the familiar kind that form from the collapse of massive stars. They are hypothetical, microscopic black holes that would have been formed in the chaotic, ultra-dense conditions of the very first second after the Big Bang. While most would have evaporated by now, it is theorized that a planet-mass black hole could have survived. A black hole with 5 to 10 times the mass of the Earth would be no larger than a grapefruit. An object like this would be the ultimate cosmic ghost. It would emit no light, reflect no light, and be utterly invisible. Yet, it would exert the exact same gravitational influence on the distant Kuiper Belt objects as a planet of the same mass. We would feel its presence, but we would never, ever be able to see it. How could we possibly detect it? The only way would be to look for the faint flashes of light, called annihilation halos, that would be produced if the black hole passed in front of a distant star, or if it occasionally consumed a passing comet. A team of astronomers, including Jakub Schultz and James Unwin, have seriously proposed this as a viable alternative to the Planet 9 hypothesis. The idea that a tiny, invisible fragment of the Big Bang itself might be silently orbiting our sun, shaping our solar system from the darkness, is a concept straight out of science fiction. The conspiracies that stem from these alternative theories are even darker. If the government knows about a companion brown dwarf, a dark sun, they are hiding the single most important fact about our cosmic environment. A brown dwarf on a periodic orbit that triggers extinction-level events is not just a scientific curiosity, it's a confirmed doomsday clock. Hiding that information would be the greatest cover-up in human history, done to prevent the complete and total collapse of civilization. The primordial black hole theory leads to even wilder speculation. Some have connected the idea of a PBH in our solar system to the strange experiments at CERN's Large Hadron Collider. Fringe theories have long claimed that CERN is attempting to open portals or gateways to other dimensions. What if, the conspiracy asks, they are not trying to open a portal, but to communicate with or harness the energy of the PBH? An object born in the Big Bang would be a gateway to understanding the most fundamental physics of the universe. Perhaps it is not just orbiting our sun, but is a source of immense power or information that a secret, transnational organisation is trying to tap into. Even the known anomalies in our solar system hint at stranger things. The Pioneer anomaly, an unexplained deceleration observed in the Pioneer 10 and 11 spacecraft as they exited the solar system, was a mystery for decades. While it was eventually attributed to the subtle recoil pressure from heat radiating off the spacecraft's own power sources, some researchers still believe it could be evidence of unknown gravitational forces or even a modification of the laws of physics at great distances from the Sun. Then there is the flyby anomaly, where multiple spacecraft have inexplicably gained or lost tiny amounts of orbital energy during Earth gravity assist flybys. These anomalies are small, but they demonstrate that our understanding of gravity and motion in the solar system is not yet complete. Whether Planet 9 is a super-Earth, a dark star companion, or a grapefruit-sized piece of the Big Bang, its existence forces us to reconsider our place in the cosmos. We are not living in a simple clockwork solar system. We are living on the edge of a vast, dark wilderness, filled with unseen giants and governed by forces we are only just beginning to comprehend. The ghost in the machine is real. The only question is what form it takes. If a celestial object periodically returned to wreak havoc on the inner solar system, it would be the single most terrifying and unforgettable event in human history. It would be seared into the collective memory of our species, a trauma so profound it would echo down through the ages, preserved in our oldest stories, myths, and religious texts. And when we look at the mythological record from cultures all across the globe, cultures that had no possible contact with one another, we find exactly that, a persistent, recurring memory of a celestial destroyer. They called it by different names, described it with different metaphors, but the core of the story is hauntingly the same. A great and terrible object appears in the sky, bringing fire, floods, and the end of an age. One of the most explicit and chilling accounts comes not from a mainstream religious text, but from a controversial collection of documents known as the Kolbrin Bible. Purported to be a collection of ancient Egyptian and Celtic manuscripts saved from the burning of Glastonbury Abbey in 1184, its authenticity is fiercely debated. But whether it is a genuine ancient text or a modern creation, its content is startling. It speaks of a recurring cosmic catastrophe caused by an object it calls the Destroyer. The text describes it as a large, reddish celestial body that returns at regular intervals, at the end of great cycles. Its appearance is a harbinger of doom. Men forget the days of the Destroyer. One passage reads, "Only the wise know where it went, and that it will return in its appointed time. It is a thing of awesome dread." The descriptions of its effects are terrifyingly specific. It causes the sky to burn and the ground to tilt. It triggers immense earthquakes that swallow the mountains and floods that sweep across the land. It rains down hot stones and a fine reddish dust that poisons the air and water, causing plagues and madness. The Destroyer rode on a great black rolling cloud, and it raged about the heavens. Its mouth was a cavern of flames, and from it came smoke and hot cinders. This sounds less like a religious prophecy, and more like the eyewitness account of a planetary near miss, complete with descriptions of atmospheric entry friction, meteoric debris, and the planet-wide geological upheaval caused by a massive gravitational tide. This theme of a celestial destroyer is not unique to the Kolbrin. In ancient Egypt, the sun god Ra was said to have a destructive aspect, the Eye of Ra, which he would unleash to punish humanity. This force often took the form of the lioness goddess Sekhmet, who descended in a bloodthirsty rage, slaughtering mortals until the fields ran red. To stop her from wiping out the entire human race, the gods had to trick her into drinking vast quantities of beer, dyed red to look like blood, causing her to pass out. This myth, often interpreted as a metaphor for the scorching heat of the sun, takes on a more literal and terrifying meaning if it's a memory of a red, celestial object that brought fiery destruction from the sky. In Greek mythology, the story of Phaethon tells of a young demigod who tries to drive the chariot of his father, Helios, the sun god. He loses control of the fiery horses, and the chariot veers wildly across the sky, first soaring too high and freezing the earth, then plunging too low, scorching the land, boiling rivers, and turning vast regions of Africa into desert. To save the world from total annihilation, Zeus is forced to strike Phaethon down with a thunderbolt. Is this just a cautionary tale about hubris, or is it a memory of a celestial body that appeared to be a second sun, one that approached the earth and burned its surface before being seemingly cast away? The biblical book of Revelation contains a strikingly similar prophecy. In chapter 8, a great star burning like a torch falls from the sky. Its name is Wormwood. It crashes into the rivers and springs, poisoning a third of the earth's fresh water and causing the deaths of many. While often interpreted as a symbolic event, the description of a single named celestial object bringing a specific kind of chemical or radiological contamination to the Earth's water supply is eerily precise. Is this a prophecy of the future, or a memory of the past? A warning of what happens when the destroyer returns, and its cometary tail or atmospheric dust trail, the bitter essence of wormwood, settles upon the land. Across the ocean, the indigenous Hopi people of Arizona have a prophecy of the blue star Kachina. They believe that the end of the current fourth world will be signalled by the appearance of a new star in the heavens. This star will be the herald of the purifier, a celestial being who will bring about a great cleansing of the earth. The prophecies state it will come when the Sakwa Sohu, blue star Kachina, dances in the plaza and removes his mask. He represents a blue star, far off and yet invisible, which will make its appearance soon. Many interpret this blue star as a comet or a distant planet that will become visible before the final cataclysm, from the Norse Ragnarok, which describes the sky splitting open and the fire giant Surt setting the world ablaze, to the Hindu concept of the Kali Yuga, an age of darkness and destruction that ends with the Kalki avatar arriving on a white horse. The pattern is universal, a cyclical end of days initiated by a celestial event, followed by a renewal. These are not isolated stories. They are fragments of a single global memory of a recurring catastrophe. Another great scientific comparison here is with the geological and archaeological record. We know of multiple instances of sudden, unexplained collapses of civilizations, often accompanied by evidence of widespread fires, floods, and climate change. The Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BC saw the simultaneous fall of the Mycenaean, Hittite, and Egyptian New Kingdom empires. The collapse of the Akkadian Empire around 2200 BC is linked to a sudden, catastrophic drought. Could these historical resets be linked to the passage of a celestial object? Perhaps Nibiru the Destroyer doesn't need to come catastrophically close to cause chaos. A passage that is merely close enough to disrupt weather patterns, trigger volcanic activity, or shower the earth with dust and small meteorites could be enough to destabilise fragile civilizations and plunge the world into a dark age, leaving behind only the fragmented, terrifying myths of what the survivors witnessed in the sky. The myths speak of fire and floods, of skies falling and lands reshaping. But what does this look like through the cold, unforgiving lens of physics? If a massive planetary body, a planet 9-10 times the mass of Earth, or a brown dwarf many times larger, were to pass through the inner solar system, it would not need to make direct contact with our planet to cause an extinction-level event. Its primary weapon is gravity, an invisible force that reaches across millions of miles of empty space, and its effects would be a cascade of geological and atmospheric destruction on a scale that defies human imagination. The apocalypse would not be a single event, but a protracted, multi-stage nightmare. The first sign would be subtle, detectable only by our most sensitive instruments. Long before it became visible, its gravitational influence would begin to perturb the delicate balance of our solar system. The orbits of the outer planets would begin to shift in ways our models couldn't predict. Asteroids in the belt between Mars and Jupiter would be nudged from their stable paths, increasing the number of near-Earth objects on a trajectory for impact. We would see a dramatic spike in meteor activity, the sky filled with more and more shooting stars, the vanguard of the coming storm. Then the effects would reach our closest celestial neighbour, the Moon. Its orbit would begin to wobble, its distance from Earth fluctuating erratically. This would have an immediate and catastrophic effect on Earth's tides. The familiar rhythm of high and low tide would be shattered. We would experience colossal, unpredictable tidal surges, rogue tides that could rise hundreds of feet, sweeping inland without warning, inundating coastal cities and poisoning agricultural land with salt water. The gravitational stress would also begin to pull on Earth's tectonic plates, causing a global increase in seismic activity. Earthquake swarms would erupt along major fault lines like the San Andreas and the Ring of Fire. The frequency and magnitude of earthquakes would rise exponentially, shaking our cities to rubble. As the intruder drew closer, becoming a visible and terrifying new star in our sky, the true horror would begin. The gravitational pull on Earth's lithosphere, its solid outer crust, would be immense. The crust would be stretched and compressed, causing it to crack and buckle. Dormant supervolcanoes like Yellowstone in North America or Lake Toba in Indonesia would be jolted awake. An eruption at Yellowstone would be a planetary-scale disaster, ejecting 1,000 cubic kilometres of ash and rock into the atmosphere. This dense cloud would block out the sun, plunging the world into a volcanic winter that could last for decades. Global temperatures would plummet, crops would fail worldwide, and civilization would face mass starvation. Simultaneously, the intruder's gravity would be pulling on Earth's molten iron core. This would disrupt the geodynamo that generates our planet's magnetic field. The magnetosphere, our protective shield against harmful solar radiation and cosmic rays, would flicker and weaken, possibly even collapsing entirely for a period. Compass needles would spin uselessly. Auroras, normally confined to the poles, would be seen at the equator, but the beautiful light show would be a harbinger of death. Without our magnetic shield, the solar wind, a stream of charged particles from the sun, would strip away our atmosphere, much like it did to Mars billions of years ago. Harmful radiation would bombard the surface, causing lethal cancers in any life that survived the initial geological upheaval. Our electronic infrastructure would be wiped out by intense geomagnetic storms, sending the modern world back to a pre-industrial age in an instant. If the passing body had its own magnetic field, the interaction would be even more violent. The two fields could connect, creating vast electrical discharges, planet-scale lightning bolts, arcing between the two worlds through the vacuum of space. The sky itself would appear to be on fire. The most dramatic effect would be a potential physical shift of the Earth's crust over the mantle, an event known as a crustal displacement, or pole shift. Popularised by the theorist Charles Hapgood and famously endorsed by Albert Einstein as a concept worth exploring. This theory suggests that the entire lithosphere could slide and shift in one piece, moving continents thousands of miles and repositioning the North and South poles in a matter of days or even hours. Regions like Antarctica could be moved to the equator, causing its ice sheets to melt with catastrophic speed, raising sea levels by over 200 feet and drowning virtually every coastal region on the planet. Tropical regions could be shifted to the new poles, flash freezing everything in a geological instant. This event would create continent-sized tsunamis and winds of supersonic speeds, scouring the surface of the Earth clean. Even after the intruder receded into deep space, the ordeal would not be over. The Earth might be left with a new axial tilt, changing the length of our days and seasons irrevocably. Our orbit around the Sun could be altered, pushed farther out into a longer, colder year, or pulled closer into a scorching one, and the trail of debris left in the intruder's wake, a new asteroid belt dragged from the outer solar system, would mean that for centuries to come, the Earth would be subject to a continuous bombardment of meteors, a final lingering reminder of the day the heavens fell. This is not mythology. It is a clinical, physical description of what happens when the fundamental laws of gravity are turned into a weapon of mass destruction. The conspiracy around this terrifying science is simple and chilling. Governments know this is possible. Secret, deep underground military bases, DUMBs, have not been built for nuclear war, but as arks to preserve a select elite, politicians, scientists, billionaires, while the surface of the planet is cleansed. Projects studying climate change, geology, and space weather are not just for public benefit. They are part of a massive, classified surveillance program, looking for the first signs of the intruder's return. The information is kept secret because the truth is too terrible to accept. The catastrophe is not survivable for the vast majority of the human population, and revealing it would only lead to a panic that would hasten the collapse of civilization before the event itself even begins. A threat exists that could erase civilization. Do you believe you would be told? The most dangerous truth in the world is that the answer is no. The fundamental purpose of any structure of power, from governments to global corporations, is self-preservation. And if the choice is between preserving the system and telling a truth that would shatter it, the lie will be chosen every single time. The greatest conspiracy is not that a hidden planet exists, but that its existence has been known for decades, and we are living through the final act of the most sophisticated and ruthless cover-up in human history. The justification for this secrecy, whispered in the classified memos and secure briefing rooms of the world, would be deceptively simple and almost sound benevolent: to prevent panic. Imagine the announcement. A broadcast interrupts every channel, a sombre official confirming that a massive planetary body will pass through our solar system in the near future, with a high probability of catastrophic geological and atmospheric effects. What happens next? Not orderly preparation. What happens is the immediate and total disintegration of society. The stock markets would not just crash, they would cease to exist in minutes. The global financial system would evaporate. Every supermarket would be stripped bare within hours. The power grid, water supplies and transportation networks would fail as their operators abandoned their posts to be with their families. Law and order would become a distant memory. It would be a global, self-inflicted apocalypse before the celestial object even arrived. So the logic goes, the truth must be hidden. It is a necessary lie told to protect humanity from its own self-destructive nature. But this benevolent justification is itself the first layer of the lie. The cover-up is not designed to save humanity. It is designed to save a select few from humanity. The real operation is one of information control, psychological manipulation, and resource consolidation. It begins with the instruments of discovery. NASA and other national space agencies are not purely scientific bodies. They are extensions of the state, deeply intertwined with the military and intelligence communities. Every byte of data from deep space probes like Voyager and Pioneer, every image from orbital telescopes like Hubble, is filtered. We see only what we are permitted to see. Proponents of the cover-up point to a smoking gun from 1983. The Infrared Astronomical Satellite, or IRAS, scanned the sky for objects emitting heat. On December 30th, the Washington Post ran a front-page story quoting scientists from the project who had discovered a mysterious, Jupiter-sized, heavenly body in the direction of Orion. The story caused a brief sensation before being aggressively walked back by officials who claimed it was just a distant galaxy or a gas cloud. For researchers, this was not a retraction, it was damage control. They believe IRAS found Nibiru, and the deep state slammed the door shut on the discovery, classifying the data and burying the story forever. A key figure in this hidden history is Robert Harrington, the chief astronomer of the US Naval Observatory. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, he was one of the few mainstream astronomers to take the search for Planet X seriously. He published papers suggesting a massive intruder planet was responsible for orbital anomalies. He even calculated a potential location for it in the southern sky. Then, in 1993, at the height of his research and just before he was scheduled to give a major presentation on his findings, Robert Harrington died suddenly and rapidly of esophageal cancer. His death is considered by many in the conspiracy community to be a convenient silencing of a brilliant mind that was getting too close to the forbidden truth. The modern search for Planet 9 is seen as the next phase of the cover-up, soft disclosure. By allowing a sanitized, academic version of the story to emerge, they control the narrative. They admit a large planet might be out there, but they place it on a safe 10,000 to 20,000 year orbit, making it a distant curiosity with no immediate relevance. This masterstroke inoculates the public against the more alarming 3,600 year cycle proposed by Sitchin. If the truth starts to leak out, it can be dismissed as a confused misinterpretation of the real Planet 9. While the public is distracted by this academic theatre, the real preparations are underway. For decades, governments have been pouring trillions of dollars into a black budget infrastructure of survival. The legendary deep underground military bases, or DUMBS, are not just nuclear bunkers. They are vast subterranean cities, self-sufficient arks burrowed deep into mountainsides, capable of sustaining a chosen population for decades. Locations like the infamous Denver International Airport, with its bizarre murals depicting apocalypse and a new world order, are believed to be surface-level access points to these massive underground complexes. But why hide when you can escape? The most extreme version of this theory posits the existence of a breakaway civilization. This theory suggests that a secret, international consortium has developed technology far beyond anything in the public domain. Anti-gravity propulsion, zero-point energy, and sustainable off-world habitats. They have a secret space program, and they are not just planning to ride out the storm underground, they are planning to leave. The colonization of the Moon and Mars, they argue, has already happened in secret. The elite do not see Earth as a home to be saved, but as a sinking ship to be abandoned. The cover-up ensures they can complete their escape plan without being hindered by a panicking, rioting global population of 7 billion people they have no intention of saving. The deepest, darkest layer of the conspiracy connects all of this back to the Anunnaki. What if the global elite are not acting alone? Perhaps they are the direct descendants of the Anunnaki human hybrid bloodlines that Sitchin wrote about, the blue bloods placed in power thousands of years ago to manage the human farm. Or perhaps a pact has been made. The returning Anunnaki need the planet's resources, particularly its gold, and the current human overpopulation is an obstacle. The elite have agreed to facilitate a planetary culling through manufactured wars, pandemics, and economic collapse, followed by the final cataclysm, in exchange for their own survival and a place of power in the new world that will rise from the ashes of the old. In this scenario, the cover-up's not just an act of self-preservation, it is an act of planetary treason, a collaboration in a managed genocide. The chaos and division we see in the world today are not random, they are the engineered precursor to the final reset. After navigating the labyrinth of ancient texts, astronomical calculations, and terrifying conspiracies, we arrive at the final, most important question. What does the story of Nibiru truly mean? Whether it is a real planet, a brown dwarf, a primordial black hole, or a complete fabrication, the idea of Nibiru has become one of the most powerful and enduring myths of the modern age. It is more than just a doomsday prophecy. It is a mirror reflecting our deepest anxieties, our greatest hopes, and our unending search for meaning in a universe that often feels cold and silent. At its core, the Nibiru myth is a story about powerlessness. It taps into a profound and growing feeling that our civilization is careening out of control, driven by forces we cannot see or understand. The world is racked by climate change, political instability, economic inequality, and the looming threat of technological disruption. In the face of these complex man-made problems, the idea of a single, external, cosmic event that will wipe the slate clean can be perversely comforting. Nibiru offers a simple, dramatic explanation for the chaos. It absolves us of responsibility. The end is not our fault. It is simply our destiny, written in the stars and orbital mechanics. The apocalypse becomes an astronomical event, not a failure of our own making. The myth is also a powerful expression of our profound cosmic loneliness. The scientific consensus tells us we are the product of random mutation and natural selection, intelligent accidents on a tiny speck of dust in an indifferent cosmos. The Nibiru story, particularly in Sitchin's telling, offers a dramatic and personal alternative. It tells us we are not accidents. We were created. We have a purpose, even if that purpose was originally one of servitude. It tells us we are not alone. Our creators, our cosmic family are still out there. This narrative re-enchants the universe, filling the silent void with gods, giants, and epic dramas. It replaces the cold, sterile story of evolution with a family history, however dysfunctional it may be. The return of the Anunnaki is not just an apocalypse, it is a reunion, a final reckoning with our makers. Furthermore, the Nibiru narrative functions as a modern-day Gnostic text. Gnosticism was an ancient spiritual movement that believed the material world was a prison created by a lesser, malevolent deity, the demiurge, and that humanity's true divine spark was trapped within it. Salvation came from gnosis, or secret knowledge, revealed by a messenger from a higher, true reality. The Nibiru myth perfectly maps onto this structure. The Anunnaki are the demiurge, our creators and jailers. The earth is the prison, a mine where we are forced to labour, and figures like Zecharia Sitchin, or the whistleblowers who speak of government cover-ups, become the Gnostic messengers, delivering the secret knowledge that can awaken us to our true nature and our cosmic predicament. Believing in Nibiru is not just accepting a theory, it is an act of initiation into an elite group of the awakened, those who see the bars of the cage that the rest of humanity, the sheeple, cannot. The scientific comparisons to this psychological function are fascinating. Consider the Great Filter hypothesis, a proposed solution to the Fermi paradox, the question of, if the universe is full of life, where is everybody? The Great Filter suggests that there is some barrier or challenge that is so difficult for life to overcome that it prevents civilizations from becoming interstellar. This barrier could be anything from the jump to multicellular life to the development of nuclear weapons. The Nibiru myth provides a dramatic, recurring candidate for the Great Filter, a cyclical, planet-sterilizing cosmic event. Perhaps civilizations rise and fall across the galaxy, snuffed out by rogue planets or the passage of dark stars through their systems before they can ever reach the stars. Our own civilization's survival, then, depends on whether we can overcome this specific, predictable filter. Ultimately, the power of the Nibiru myth lies in its ability to synthesize our ancient past and our technological future. It takes our oldest creation stories, our most primal fears of flood and fire, and fuses them with the language of modern science. Genetics, astronomy, space travel, and quantum physics. It allows us to look at a 6,000-year-old clay tablet and see a blueprint for genetic engineering. It lets us look at a NASA press release about a distant planet and see the fulfillment of a prophecy. It creates a seamless narrative that stretches from the dawn of civilization in Sumer to the potential end of our own. So is Nibiru coming? In a literal sense, the evidence remains inconclusive, a tapestry of mathematical probabilities, mythological echoes, and deep-seated suspicion. But in a metaphorical sense, Nibiru is already here. It is the anxiety of our age, the feeling that we are on the brink of a profound transformation we cannot control. It is the name we give to the nagging suspicion that the reality we have been sold is a lie. It is the symbol of a cosmic reset, a violent and terrifying end that paradoxically holds the promise of a new beginning. Whether a planet appears in the sky or not, the myth itself is a force of nature, a gravitational pull on our collective imagination, forcing us to look up at the heavens and question everything we thought we knew about who we are and where we are going. The search for Nibiru is, and always has been, a search for ourselves.